President Crackler? Here. Vice President Markowski? Trustee Amaka?
Here.
Trustee Brueggemann? Here. Trustee Borman?
Here.
Trustee Ellis? Here. Trustee Ellithorpe?
Here.
Trustee Culligan? Trustee Wojtovich?
Here.
Student Representative McPhee? Here. And Student Representative Thompson?
Here.
Thank you. Will you now join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? Flags over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have 4 minutes, October 22, or October 13 and 25, November 8, and December 13 to approve. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes? Dean, second. John, Ellis, any discussion? Natalia has discussion. Go ahead.
I'd like to pull the November minutes. There's a typo, and so can I get a second for that?
Any discussion on pulling the November minutes for the typo?
Natalia, can you just, what is it specifically?
So at the November meeting, items, one was about bulk salt storage, and one was about the grants coordinator position. And we did that, and on our end it was okay, but in the actual minutes there's a typo that makes it look like we approved the grants position that night and then again at the December meeting. So it's just pulling it. I already let district admin know so that it can be corrected.
decision to take this opportunity away from us. Some of you will dismiss my words, saying that it doesn't matter how much I care for this program. There are simply not enough students who have a desire to enroll. Here, you would be woefully ignorant. Latin is a vibrant and sought-after course. Other schools in our region, such as Shen, have a flourishing program for Latin. It is not because Latin is a dead language, or pointless, or impractical, that our program is being choked to death. It is the fault of our district for actively, prejudicially, and quite ignorantly discouraging students from the pursuit of this education. It is not enough to give us a few more years of study and then kill the program that has been a part of our community for decades. We demand that you help us end this irresponsible intent to gag the Latin program. Do not hold our program hostage. It is your responsibility to protect and nourish our education. You may still not see the work in this program, but know that by extinguishing it, you will have failed us as students. I would like to thank you all for your time. You might help us protect our education. Good evening.
Thank you. Next up is Lisa Glazer.
Hello, my name is Lisa Glazer, and I live at 657 Akron Boulevard in Ballston Spa. I'm a teacher in Saratoga County and a parent of 2 children in the district, one in the elementary school and one at the middle school. I was one of many individuals who wrote to this board in the spring of 2021 in support of the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy and regulation, which was ultimately passed unanimously, and amongst those 9 votes, 7 are sitting around this table today. In Section E of the regulation, it states that, quote, the district will apply an equity lens when making any decisions that will have an impact on students by answering the following questions, unquote. I'll say again, any decisions that will have an impact on students. The regulation goes on to lay out 5 specific questions that should be reviewed in each of these situations. Tonight, 2 MOUs have been added to the agenda that would allow for the hiring of 2 additional SROs in our district. I do not know of any evidence that those 5 questions were used in order to apply an equity lens to that decision. For that matter, as a pays close attention to the work of the board, I have not heard or seen specific evidence that those 5 apply to any decisions impacting students since this policy was enacted. In Section B, the regulation states, quote, the district strives to be inclusive and free of bias, but we are a reflection of a broader society in which inequality and bias exist, unquote. By disregarding or sidestepping the processes laid out in the regulation, the district is making room for bias and inequality. Our systems, not just of this district, but of this nation, are steeped in a racist history. It is for that reason that the policy and regulation were passed. This district did a brave thing and passed this policy and regulation despite vitriolic dissent. It is imperative that the administration and the Board of Education uphold the practices of the policy and regulation so that we as a district can continue the mission of equity of opportunity. Moreover, our structures and our systems do fail when our governing bodies fail to adhere to the statutes they themselves have put in place. When in tonight's consent agenda, I implore you to follow our budgetary structures and our DEI regulation. Finally, in Section F of the regulation, it outlines that the superintendent, in consultation with the board, is tasked to monitor the effectiveness and report on the progress of the plan, as well as on the district's overall progress in barriers and effectively serving each and every student. Please take that responsibility seriously and do not pass those MOUs tonight.
Thank you. Next up is Anthony Sanchez.
Salway, esteemed members of the Board of Education. I'm here today on the subject of the disheartening cancel the lab program. As a lab student myself, I can attest to the value and importance it has made to me. Personally, taking the lab program has made such an impact on my experience as a high school student. The course is accessible to all students regardless of the classes they take, meaning that the interactions and conversations that occur are much richer because of everyone's different experiences. In Latin, we have a phrase, sumus familia, we are family. And that could be not more true. Just an example, in my English class, me and 2 other Latin students always sit together. And the English teacher on not only the English language, but also history itself is something really special. When I looked at the course selection sheet for next year and didn't see Latin, my heart sank. To think that future students will not be able to makes me really upset. When I sat that could occur, such as reaching out to nearby colleges and seeing if anyone that's upcoming in the classics program or teacher knows anyone, or if my district could mentor someone. And it seems to me that the district did not take advantage of their vast network. I've been a student of Saratoga High School. I've been a student of Saratoga schools forever, and to make the right choice over the easy choice. And a lot of times, the right choice is the hard one. In this case, the right choice is to find any way to keep Magistra's and Mrs. Sadline's invaluable legacy for students to enjoy. So, are you going to cancel the Latin program, or are you going to practice what you preach and make the right choice? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Lily Roseanne.
And Superintendent Patton. My name is Lily Roseanne. I'm a sophomore in college, a Saratoga Springs resident, and an alumnus of the Saratoga Springs School District. I graduated in 2021 as a fifth-year Latin student and went on to college, where I'm now working to receive a degree in classical studies on the Latin track. Experience with Latin at SSCSD and why it would be such an enormous disservice to the district and our students to proceed with the plan to dispose of the Latin program. I transitioned from Maple Avenue to the high school, already taking 2 years of Spanish, and chose to take both Spanish 2 and Accelerated Latin, which is levels 1 and 2, in my freshman year at SSCSD. While, of course, I can't speak for every single student, I'd like to give you a comparison of my experiences and observations in Spanish and Latin during that year. My Spanish 2 class was, to put it politely, disorganized. Students were failing the class miserably. Now, in their 3rd school year of Spanish, they were barely able to remember. Several students spent the class on their phones or asleep, and there was little in the way of an organized curriculum. Accelerated Latin was a comparative haven of education. My first year of Latin was the first block class, meaning we started before 8 in the morning. Usually trying to get 14-year-olds excited about learning before the sun is even up would seem like a laughable effort, but Magister Sadlon did it with me. Every morning, we walked into our classroom and sat down. We're accelerated. What does that mean? And the entire class would loudly chant in response, "We go fast." I observed myself and my fellow Latin students excelling. We made color-coordinated vocabulary lists and discussed the culture and history of ancient Rome. By the end of my first year of Latin, I had both learned and retained vastly more than in the entirety of my 3 years of Spanish. I want to be clear here. I do not make this comparison to say that Spanish is not a language worth learning. It is. Or that the modern language faculty in the district are not working hard to be excellent. I'm making this comparison to highlight the most important value of offering Latin as I experienced it at Saratoga Springs High School. Latin students love Latin. I Spanish classroom in this district and see the classroom full of kids who truly fun. But you can find that without fail in Magister Sadlon's Latin classroom. Latin students want to be there. Look at the comments on Dunn's petition. Look at the comments of now adult alumni because of Magister Sadlon's Latin class. I could easily have spent the last 3 minutes reciting for you the endless benefits of taking our students' writing, reading comprehension, critical thinking. The list goes on. And these things are important. But more important than all of them is that Latin inspires love of learning and disciple. You can't find in any other language offered at the high school. That's why I'm here, having graduated this district 2 years ago already. Latin students love Latin, and we will go to great lengths because we want to be able to keep learning it.
Could you finish up that thought, please?
Yes.
Thanks.
You can see the passion these students have, and as those responsible for protecting and cultivating our students, I hope you have the good sense to recognize how special and important that is. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next up is Benjamin Grover.
My name is Benjamin Glover. My personal positive experience with our SRO, Officer Bear. He served an important role, building a healthy image and a relationship with police and students at the high school. He also serves as a positive influence for many students. Any issues that are appropriate to talk to a counselor. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Heather Reynolds.
Debate in public about what priorities should be funded. It is incredibly important to note that budgetary requests that go through have a vision. And the board two additional full-time officers fit with the pathway vision and for programming and budgetary decisions. Is it equity of opportunity? Is adding 2 additional SROs help students overcome barriers? Sexual, creative, and social support. Is it collaboration? Is adding 2 additional is adding 2 additional SROs provide opportunities? Does adding 2 SROs help personalize teaching and learning to meet individual all learners so that they develop meaningful connections that support personal
Thank you. Next up is Aaron Leary.
I live on Philo Street, and I have 2 children who attend Lake Avenue. I have listened to this debate for months and been a single argument for SROs that is supported by research. Only a tremendous appeal to emotion and I fear a shooting. But it is fear, not reality. It is emotion, not belief, and belief, not substance. Despite what Victor made clear last month, that his recommendation to add SROs had no substance behind it. In 2018, the recommendation was based on response times and jurisdiction. This time is based on what he thought and provided none of the reasons behind it. In fact, he went through a litany of things he didn't actually look at and said that he did not understand the underwriting process that underlies risk management. His quote-unquote analysis did not address the very real risks of implementing this program, nor the issues around equity, rights issues around access to education, and discrimination. Our district already stood out in a 2019 NICU analysis for racial disparity, and there is an ongoing agency investigation There has not been an evaluation. Please consider what it means to cast a vote saying that the district does not need to follow board policy. Overall budget. But in 2019, the Lake Avenue PTA bought chairs for the music room. Chairs, $7,000 for chairs. Has never had chairs because they were not in the budget. Chairs and book fair with the goal to use particular requirements around including. The PTA bought the library shelves because they were not in the budget. $9,000 that wasn't in the budget. We're buying new lounge. At one point. We lost 2 teachers at Lake. Right? Forced them to split their time between schools and they found jobs elsewhere. This year, the high school unenrolled students in both. That was not in the budget. There is a no social worker at Caroline Street, even though for free or reduced lunch. Both have said we can have both SROs and mental health, but when submitted outside of the budget cycle and on its own,
Can you finish that thought, please?
it's forwarding SROs without any real consideration for the overall budget. Voting is, as MOUs tonight, is reckless, irresponsible, for real reason. Such a vote is the ideological vote and is an example of support as responsibilities, a terrible precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Charlie Samuels.
Hi, as I said, my name is Charlie Samuels. I live in Saratoga Springs, and I am at the Saratoga Center. I'm not a fan of SROs, except for Officer Matter. I don't think they're effective against school shootings. Statistics bear this out very convincingly. When you wait to the last seconds for a surprise attack, when the shooter has already thought of everything, then there's pretty much nothing to stop them. Hardly any school shootings were prevented by an SRO that was on the school grounds. By that point, it's over. You've lost the battle. It's like trying to stop the 9/11 hijackers from flying into the Twin Towers within the last 15 seconds. I'm a fan of stopping school shooters from even thinking about it. Prevention is the best, easiest, and cheapest way to stop this madness. Why not take that $150,000 a year and put it toward the start of the problem, not the end of the problem, in the form of trained social workers and counselors? And what about classes that chill kids out, like art, music, exercise? They show kids that school is not just about learning, it's about fun too. These classes also reveal students' emotional distress. And finally, we can all help our community by absolutely free by seeking out those who are lonely and sad. And those are the people that sometimes go on to lose. But please,
Thank you. Next up is Mark Crockett.
One of the reasons that SRO's got a couple subjects. Two additional SROs in elementary schools. But
vaccine for public schools. They're also looking at masking legislation. The vaccines that they are referred to do not prevent contraction of COVID-19. That is well established, so they are basically ineffective. There is significant data to show that vaccines reduce inherent immunity and in documented cases that cause serious side effects and even death. And as children have never been endangered by this virus, it makes absolutely no scientific sense to vaccinate children, let alone make it mandatory. So masks have been shown to have minimal effect, if any, in preventing the transfer of the virus, as masked up states fare no better than states like ours. One last item, please. Several high schools in Northern Virginia, are being investigated for not informing the appropriate students that they receive national merit scholarships, resulting in them not obtaining scholarships to college. This was apparently done under the umbrella of equity, with the districts employing subcontractors, somewhat to instruct teachers and others how to adopt DEI, ensure that we would never allow our costly subcontractors to guide us in this faulty way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up are Megan Fairley and Annabelle Gross-Close.
We are seniors at Saratoga High School and members of already gotten rid of the accelerated Latin program after our freshman. So we're here to give you yet another reason to continue the Latin program.
Well, I'm going to start with saying some the benefits. Latin is the basis of many international languages. So when you're traveling out of the country, I remember what my brother was telling me when he traveled to Prague. Quiz and literally only got the Latin words, and we had to memorize the Latin words. I remember I got 100 on our regular, just like our English classes. Last go over random. When I wasn't taking Latin, didn't understand simple rather than Spanish because we had arguments.
Most of you are aware, to graduate with an advanced linguistics diploma, you need 3 years of a language. For many of us, we dropped our second language after our freshman year. Megan, no, this is not an issue because we have our years of Latin, but for many of the students who did drop that second language and are now not going to be able to fill that requirement. I also say that to me, the best part of Latin, well, it does encourage learning. It's my favorite part of Latin is people. You go through every single level with the same people, and it produces this very close family-like bond for all of us. And it really does become a safe place in the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kira Byrne.
Test, test.
Hello, I'm Kira Byrne. Tonight I'm going to be talking about why Latin should be continued. I'm a current Level 2 Latin student, and before I was told that Latin will not be continuing after this year, I was planning on taking Latin throughout high school for all 4 years. Latin is my favorite class, and I would have taken accelerated Latin if that had been an option. So to me, Latin is important. Both my parents took it, Both my older siblings took it with Magistra and loved it, and my little brother wants to take it. I've both formed and strengthened friendships in that class. When I see my friends from that class, I say hi to them, in Latin. I also literally can't imagine not taking Latin next year. But I'm sure you don't want sentimental sentences filled with tears. You want facts. Latin helps with grammar and spelling. On the PSAT, even with only one full year of Latin under my belt, I was still able to use what I learned to help with the English section. In my French class, I'm ahead of the material, not with the specific vocab and tenses, but with the ideas of conjugating verbs and knowing when to use an infinitive because I know what complementary infinitives are, or when I should have a preposition because there would be one there in Latin. The school is making sure students quit because there are 2 different levels of Latin within one class. The school says it won't continue Latin because not enough people want to take it, yet they're not talking about it to future generations of students. The school's not bringing it up to middle schoolers, and they're not bringing it up to high schoolers. How are people supposed to know Latin is an option when they're not told of it? They're not sold on the class just from seeing it on the course list. I only knew it was a solid option because my siblings took it. The school is actively sabotaging the language and then claiming no one wants to take it. This action is a disgrace. Latin has given me tools that I use every day, but right now the school is not doing its duty of allowing students to continue learning and is instead cutting them off from education. It is not even allowing students to get tools that they can use in the real world, as they are not even letting them know that they're there. What will happen to students in Latin 1 that want to continue Latin throughout high school like previous students? The school is leaving them stranded. While that 1 year of Latin is helpful, a full 4 years of Latin will be even more beneficial to them. What will happen to people who want to take Latin but are too young? The school is deserting them. No matter how badly they want to take Latin, they can't. I have more to say, but not enough time, so I must stop. But keep in mind what I'm saying, if only for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends the first comment period. There's a second comment period later in the evening. Thanks to all who spoke. Brings us to board committee reports. Do I have any board committee reports? Mr. Brueggemann. The policy committee met, and you'll see in the agenda there is a policy related to health and some other connected topics. This was initially
20 for its first reading, and then for various reasons it got tabled, and we brought it to the December meeting for a first reading again. So it is now in the consent agenda for a second reading, which means that the intention is to vote it in tonight, unless there's any concerns about it. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dean.
Thanks, Tony. Just a quick update. The property committee has not met in the new year, but I do always touch base with John Tiener to see if there's anything he would like me to provide. And just a quick update on the legacy project. The boiler work here at Maple Ave has been completed. So that's part of the first phase. And then representatives from the facilities team, as well as Mosaic and Saratoga Project Management, met with the Greenfield staff this morning to start talking about phase 2 of the legacy project and answer any questions that they might have out there. So the legacy project is in full swing and getting ready to kick off on the phase 2 stuff.
Thanks, Dean. Anyone else? I see Angie, then Natalia. Angie, go ahead.
All right, thanks. Finance Committee met December 19th. We, as a committee, read and started to digest the fund balance and reserve plan. We're going to talk about it again in our January committee meeting and then bring it to the board for a 3 to 5 minute presentation from Tim and approval on that plan in the next few meetings. Budget development updates. Department managers and building leaders were asked to gather data on their initiatives in their buildings, and it was discovered we have 170 distinct initiatives across our buildings, and we were looking at those as well as needs in buildings in regards to budget for the upcoming year. And starting to look at the budget and think of it and more of aligning the strategic budget with our strategic plan through that lens. Finally, the controller's audit finished examining our purchasing and had a good conversation, preliminary conversation, but findings are not yet published, so that is to come.
Thanks. Natalia.
Mine's not a committee report, it's just under other board reports. I did get a call from, correct me if I'm wrong, the comptroller's office, just reviewing the audit process with me as one of the members of the board. This is standard practice for them. And the person that I spoke to asked me to report out to the board that she did inform me of the audit process. Everything that she told me about the audit process is information that Tim Hilker has already shared with us, which I made sure to let her know that we do have a business assistant superintendent who is very communicative with us and make sure that we know what's going on with the audit process. But she did fulfill the requirement of informing me about this process, and I'm reporting it out to you all.
Thank you. John, you have another?
I do. This isn't a committee report, but I want to mention a meeting that some of us attended. This was the SSTA liaison meeting that they sponsored, which Natalia, Connie, Angie, and I attended representing the board. And as usual, the SSTA put together a really interesting and illuminating program for us. We spent time with music teachers and administrators and arts teachers and administrators and some folks from Caroline Street who were talking about mental health and social well-being at Caroline Street. We learned a lot, and I want to say every single meeting I've been to hosted by the SSTA has been so productive. We learned a lot about these programs, but one thing that really stuck in my mind is I didn't hear a lot of griping about the budgetary process per se, but the people in the room were curious and seemed not deeply experienced in participating in the budgetary process. So I came away feeling like we need, at least with those folks, they need more robust avenues for sharing their input. And I'm not making any judgments right now about what certain priorities should be. It just felt like some part of the process is not working the way it should be. And I'm going to say more about that as we get into the budget process later on with the workshops, and I hope my fellow trustees who were there can help me remember things we learned about that. That's all for now. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Anybody else? Looks like that's it. We are up to student representative reports. Kate and Ryan.
At the primary level, the Geyser Road PTO has organized a very successful snowball dance and a chili cook-off this past Friday. Every student had an amazing time there. Next week, Student Council is organizing their No Place for Hate Week. They have fun activities planned every day. At Lake Avenue, Lake held a PBIS assembly on December 23rd. Band and orchestra students performed and the whole school participated in a holiday sing-along. A student from each class was recognized for following the 3 Bs. Students and family are excited for the National Blue Ribbon celebration at the end of the month. At Division Street PBIS held a holiday fun day for the students on December 23rd. Students and staff were able to wear their pajamas for PJ Day. Holiday music greeted the students along with a number of holiday inflatables. The students enjoyed time in the gymnasium for a snack and a story. The 4th and 5th grade students did a great job at their holiday December concert. At Dorothy Nolan, they are excited to have many student clubs, including Ski Club, Drama Club, and Art Club, getting ready to meet up this month. Students and families are looking forward to the HSA Winter Dance on January 20th. At Greenfield, their school made a pledge to be a No Place for Hate school. Their student leaders will have their first meeting to complete the first out of 3 activities in order for them to have the No Place for Hate designation. And at Caroline Street, this week they're hosting How to Unmake a Bully through the arts and education. Fourth grade students will be collaborating to write and record.
All right, then at the secondary level, starting at Maple Ave, the winter math and reading iReady diagnostics are beginning in the next 2 weeks. And winter sports are in full swing, and the student athletes are doing an amazing job. 6th and 7th grade students have an opportunity to attend a free week of summer camp and can talk with their science teachers about applying. And Student Council has planned a Flannel Fest Spirit Day, and it will be taking place this Friday. At the high school, we had an amazing concert season in the month of December, and students were treated to a holiday concert the day before break during 4th block. The high school recently welcomed next year's grade 9 students and families for the Academic Information Night. We shared our academic programs in the expo format, and they learned lots about the high school curriculum and the SPA program. Winter sports are underway, and our teams are having successful seasons thus far. And the SSCSD Hall of Distinction nominations are open and accepting nominations of notable Saratoga Springs High School graduates by January 31st. The ceremony for induction will be in April. That's all.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Ryan. Mike, you're up next.
Well, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, spending time with your family and friends. It was great to welcome all of our students and staff back to school last week. I want to thank Mr. Singer for hosting the Board of Education tonight. This is the last of our tours, so we start at the end of the summer and visit all of the schools. So many of you have been joining us and visiting each of the schools, but the board truly appreciates meeting with all of our teachers and our students, and our administrators do a great job showcasing initiatives and programs and supports in each of our buildings. So Maple is our last stop of our grand tour. So from here on out, we'll be all of our board meetings will be at the high school in the teaching auditorium on Tuesday or Thursday nights. So throughout the budget development process, we'll be in one location, so everyone easily can meet with us in the high school TA. So again, thank you to Scott and his team. The board tonight had an opportunity to hear from several members of our student support services team, and they highlighted a new initiative here at the Maple Ave this year, showcasing their learning lab, as well as a comm room that's utilized all throughout the school day by our students here at Maple Avenue. So our social workers, our psychologists, our therapists through BHSN, as long as with our teaching assistants, and our special education program support teachers were all there and did a wonderful job talking about the great support services that are in place here at Maple. So again, thank you to Mr. Singer and our assistant principals and the entire staff here at Maple Ave for everything you do for our kids. We've got a number of staff recognitions tonight. And on the agenda later on, the board will be accepting the resignations for the purpose of retirement for 6 additional members of our faculty. So again, it's always bittersweet for many of these individuals who spent their entire career working here with our children in Saratoga Springs. So again, at this time, I just want to recognize the following individuals who the board will be accepting their retirements tonight. So first is Dan DeBlasi. Dan's a technology teacher at Maple Ave. Victoria Jones, speech therapist at Caroline Street Elementary School. Milt Lee, music teacher at Saratoga Springs High School. Fran Lonez, earth science teacher at the high school. Althea Sadlan, Latin teacher at Saratoga Springs High School. And Diane Tucker, who's one of our school counselors here at Maple Ave. So these 6 members will join 4 previously already recommended staff members who have been previously recognized by the Board of Education. So again, we truly appreciate everything that these individuals have done for public education and specifically for our students here in Saratoga Springs. So congratulations to all this year's tonight's retirees that will be recognized later in the meeting. My next point is that each year we have a regional BOCES legislative advocacy team that we work with our local elected officials who represent our school district in Saratoga Springs. when it comes to advocacy priorities in public education. The governor had her State of the State address this afternoon. So over the next several weeks, we'll be working very closely. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with Carrie Warner. And so I serve on our Regional Advocacy Committee as the superintendent representative for our BOCES region. And each year, our local Board of Education, so there's 31 school districts in our BOCES region, we work together in identifying legislative priorities and budget priorities. And then we meet regularly throughout the legislative session, whether it be here in our local communities, or we make trips down to Albany in meeting with our elected officials in the legislative office building. And so at our last meeting, I reviewed what those legislative priorities are. And then tonight, as well as every other school board in our region, are presenting the legislative advocacy priorities to the Board of Education. So all 31 schools in our area will be adopting the same budget priorities that really will be the focus of our conversations over the next several months. So the first priority really focuses on foundation aid and the foundation aid formula. And so some of the things that we advocate for on behalf of public education is a minimum, due minimum increase for all school districts, irregardless of their foundation aid and where they are at in their phase-in level. A save harmless provision to ensure that each district receives stable funding. So there's a baseline for all districts. And then to fully fund all of our expense-based aids. So that's our BOCE aid, our transportation aid, anything that's revenue-driven. So as we spend more money and we qualify for reimbursement for the state, to continue to fully fund those expense-based aids. The next is our participation and support for students involved in career and technical education. This year we have 145 students in the high school that are involved in the career and technical education, and that's actually 20 kids more than we've had in the past. And next year, we're actually planning on having additional students continue to go over to Meyer Center at BOCES and participate in career technical education, provide students, obviously, with the essential skills that prepare them not only for college and careers, but also entering directly into the workforce. So the BOCES allows districts to receive financial reimbursement for the first $30,000 of our BOCES instructor salaries. And that really hasn't changed in the last 20, 30 years. So we're advocating for an increase in the teacher reimbursement salary up to at least $65,000, which again would be a great return on the investment that we're making for our students who participate in our BOCES career technical education programs. The third effort is to support universal free meals for all students. And again, this was something that our Board of Education took on. We were one of the first in the state to advocate for our students and families, that when the federal government ended the federal grants that for the last 2 years have been paying for free meals for all students, irregardless of family income, our Board of Education here in Saratoga Springs in October voted to utilize some of our local fund balance as well as our federal COVID grant money to allow all students in our school district as of November 1st to participate in free meals. Again, irregardless of family income. And again, since that time, there's been a lot of momentum and discussion across the state for all school districts to follow suit, as Saratoga has done, and ask the state to help support universal free meals for all children. Pardon me. The last advocacy component really focuses on workforce development. And so school districts across the state are really facing extreme workforce challenges. We see that with our support staff, with our custodial staff, our bus drivers, our mechanics, teachers' aides, teaching assistants as teachers as well. And it becomes increasingly difficult to fully and properly staff all of our buildings. And so to help address this growing problem, we're encouraging the state to consider programs to help address teacher shortages, providing flexibility in teacher certification, as well as teacher adjustment to Tier 6 in the retirement system to help school districts retain staff by making longevity more a valuable option for our staff members. So again, we'll be promoting our advocacy priorities, sharing these out with the community again, meeting with our elected officials, and we'll continue to keep everybody updated, progress that we're making throughout the budget development process. And the state, as you know, over the next several months, the governor will come out with her executive proposal in the next 2 weeks. And then between now and the end of March, looking for an April 1st state budget adoption, helps guide the work of our local education, public education here by our board and the important decisions that we have to make moving forward. Again, before I close off, I just want to thank the number of students who came tonight to speak about our Latin program. And I do want to clarify, because I did mention that our only Latin teacher, has announced her retirement, and I think this is what has started a lot of the conversation amongst our students and parents. But our high school administrators and our school counselors are working very hard at the high school to communicate with our students who are currently enrolled in Latin and having the opportunity to continue next year to offer Latin. It would require us to recruit a teacher to be able to come in to support students that are currently enrolled. So we know you're passionate about the experiences that you've had in Latin, but again, we do have a teacher who's retiring, so we have to obviously have the opportunity to go out and recruit for somebody that would be able to come in to support our students who are currently enrolled in those classes so they can continue with Latin in the future. So, again, we want to thank and congratulate Ms. Adlon on her retirement. But again, at the same time, we'll work to see if we can continue to offer those experiences next year for our kids who are currently enrolled. So Ms. Sal has been communicating out, and your counselors will be meeting with all of our high school students that are enrolled currently in Latin classes. So those concerns can be addressed in the next few weeks, and we encourage kids who are currently enrolled to select those courses next year to allow us the opportunity to develop the number of sections that we would need next year and the ability to recruit a new Latin teacher. So hopefully that helps address some of the questions or concerns that our students have presented to the board tonight. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, we now have our presentation, Stacy Moulton and her group.
So as they're getting organized, it's just my privilege to introduce Stacy and all of our PPS team members. So this is their opportunity for them to present to the Board of Education as well as the community on our program update from our PPS office.
Yes, he hands over the remote, he said, or the microphone, he says, please don't push the mute button. Where's the mute button? All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for having us. My name is Stacy Moulton. I'm the Director of Pupil Services here in Saratoga, and I am going to advance the slide. I always get a little bit of angst when we present to you because I feel like all of the work that we do is really so important. So I'm going to try to control my own anxiety tonight and keep calm and have a good pace. So maybe if I say that, that will help me to do that. But I really feel that the work that we do is really so important, and I just really want to make sure that that really comes across. So on this slide, you'll see a list of my primary responsibilities, and I almost wanted to put at all at the bottom, so and anything else that may come into the course of a crazy day at PPS. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to my amazing team so that they can introduce themselves and those that they work really closely with.
Good evening. My name is Bethany Nightingale. I'm the coordinator of special education for preschool and elementary levels. Alongside working with me, I have Lori Newcomer. She's not here tonight because we divided and conquered, and she went out to present on safety at another school building. So she covers preschool special education, and she's the chairperson for that. And then also with me.
Good evening, Caitlin Lewis. I'm a teacher on special assignment, currently serving as an elementary CSE chairperson.
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening. My name is Rob Kelly.
I'm the coordinator for special education here at Maple Avenue Middle School. I also oversee the BOCES programs, kindergarten through 8 students that attend those programs in the area. And I also support our private and parochial schools, K-12, in terms of students that attend there, in terms of Waldorf, Saratoga Independent School, St. Clement's, and Saratoga Central Catholic. And Mary Alice. Oh, and sorry, I have a department head at the middle school, amazing guy. He's not here tonight, but he provides leadership to our department here at Maple Avenue Middle School.
I literally feel like I will drop the mic. My name is Mary Alice Hipwell. I'm the coordinator for special education at the high school. I also oversee the coordination at our Saratoga Wishwe BOCES and Capital Region BOCES, meaning any student from our district who needs placement at those BOCES. I'm coordinating those programs. And I work with the wonderful Lisa Quinn. She's our department chairperson. And also she helps me chair our special education meetings.
Okay, so I'm going to get us started with a little bit of an overview. So as far as special education students go, we have approximately 925 students ages 3 through 21 here in Saratoga Springs that we provide supports for. 125 of those are preschool students. They receive early intervention and preschool supports. About 600, and I say about because from day to day, students may come or go into special education, but about 680 students receive services within our 6 elementary buildings, the middle school or the high school. 60 students are receiving in that BOCES program, they're in day treatments, homebound or residential. And then about another 60 students participate in our private and parochial schools. Our English language learners, or our ELs, we have approximately 100 students in our programs, and you can see the distribution across the buildings there. Something that was really exciting this year is now our ELs are more equitably supported in our elementaries, now receiving services in 3 of our 6 elementary schools. Just to note, the ENL program will be transitioning to Michelle Whitley as we progress through the year for oversight. Okay, so our health services. This has been a big topic over the last few years with our nurses and COVID and all of that, but I'm happy to say that our nurses are starting to get back to more of a sense of normalcy. We still do have a high number of students who are ill, whether it be COVID, flu, it's just that time of the year, the different viruses and things, but they are now able to get back to some of the screenings, state reportings, and such that we kind of had to put on hold over the past 2 years with COVID. Debbie Meerdink, our nurse supervisor, continues to do an amazing job. She responds to nurse coverage issues and keeps on top of all of the nursing and health updates as they come through. So our 504 students, I just wanted to talk just a little bit about what 504 is. So a 504, Section 504 is a federal law, and it's designed to protect the rights of individual students or individuals with disabilities. The students qualify for 504. They must have a disability that impacts them and must impact them in a major limiting life affecting way. So those students receive a 504 plan, can have access to program modifications and testing accommodations. So we have about 300 plus students receiving 504 plans this year. And that is up from last year. We had about 280 about this time last year. We have seen an increase in those referrals over the last year. And additionally, too, it's really an increase in referrals across all of our committees. So the special education services, again, across from the preschool to the school age, we've seen an increase in those referrals as well. Really, a lot, we believe, is the result of the pandemic, and I'll talk a little bit about that more as we go along. Our homeless population, so I have on here 94 students. Today we actually had 3 more students qualify under McKinney-Vento, so we have 97 students. Those come from about 50 families, and about 14 of those students are unaccompanied youth. A little too fast, I'm going to pace myself. When I last spoke last year about this time, I talked about the eviction moratorium just about being ready to be lifted. So it has been lifted. Evictions are happening. Legal aid has hired additional supports to help families in that process. In Saratoga, we do have a lack of affordable housing for our families, and this is really pushing families out of the district. So many of the motels that used to house our families are no longer doing so. So our students are having to go and live in other areas, and then we have to provide transportation for them here to continue to attend school. So while transportation, we all know, has been an issue, we have been providing students transportation from Albany, Clifton Park, Corinth, Malta, Rock City Falls, Ballston Spa, and Schuylerville. So you probably have heard this throughout some of the conversations. If you participated in our conversation earlier with the middle school team, we are definitely seeing an increase in needs. So we're seeing an increase in needs here in the district, and I assure you this is not unique to Saratoga Springs. The National Center for Educational Statistics reports that 87% of public schools report that the pandemic has negatively impacted students' social, emotional development. Similarly, 84% of the public schools agree or strongly agree that students' behavioral development has also been negatively impacted. We are seeing an increase in emotional dysregulation in students across all grade levels. We are seeing a primary focus in our early elementary schools, I would say, and then in the high school as well. So the district population really isn't growing. In fact, we have fewer students in the district now than we have in past years. We are, however, seeing a growth in, like I had said before, referrals to the Committee on Special Education or referrals to the 504 committee. So essentially what we're saying is that there are less students, but we really are seeing more need. We are seeing students that have an increase in students that have different learning needs, or students that may need more supports. Now more than ever, it is important for us to have a strong multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, to help our students and as they're growing and evolving. We do not truly have an increase in students in the district or across the nation for that matter that have disabilities. We do have a large number of students who have missed out on opportunities to experience and grow socially, emotionally, and in some cases, academically. This has been an increasing role for us in the PPS department, a lot of putting out fires. We generally have that, but we have that in spades this year. It seems, Beth and Caitlin are constantly being called to support students, as well as Mary Alice and Rob. We are being called to support students who are identified and those students who are not identified as well. So this has really been something that the department has been working with the district to really look at and address the needs of the students that we serve. So perhaps now more than ever, it is important that we prepare today's learners for future success. And I will turn it over to Bethany to continue to talk about our work.
So tonight I'm going to talk about equity of opportunity, and good evening again. For us, we want you to know it's highly important for all students. Our staff in our department, as well as across all the schools, work hard to provide students support to progress intellectually, creatively, and socially. In determining the needs of students, we consider all options supporting the students within the least restrictive environment. The goal is to build the skills and strategies within all students to assist them in advocating for their own learning. When considering the needs of students, we are constantly evaluating our continuum of special education, services, and supports. The continuum of services is always at the forefront of our work in special education. Making sure we have programming to meet the needs of students within our schools requires ongoing analysis, planning, and out-of-the-box thinking at times. We have a range of programs and services within the district, and as stated above, we're always looking to service these students in that least restrictive environment. For the 22-23 school year, we have several programs to highlight, so I'm going to go over a few of those with you. The first is our Integrated Co-Teach, or also known as ICT. Now, I know acronyms. There are a ton in special education, so we are trying to slow down and really spell them out for you. Last school year, Integrated Co-Teach was implemented in grades K and 1 in all of the elementary buildings. This year, we've rolled it out in grades 2 and 3. As a reminder, the Integrated Co-Teach model is support within the general education setting with collaborative special education teacher support. All students benefit from receiving improved instruction regardless of disability status within these classrooms. It's also a way to provide intervention for at-risk students who might need some review, practice, individualized feedback, and/or targeted intervention within that least restrictive environment. At this time, we do not have plans to expand this model past the 3rd grade, as it's currently intended as an early intervention for the kindergarten through 3rd grade students. The next area to highlight is the expansion of our Unified Physical Education program, also known as Unified PE. It's existed in the high school for several years. The inclusive model is the integration of general education students with an IEP with general education students. It's been proven beneficial on many levels. Students have demonstrated growth in social and physical skills through this model. The relationships built have grown beyond the classroom. At our high school level, we've had a staff member, Colleen Bellinger, who was recognized for her work in Unified PE. The success at the high school level has really brought some enthusiasm down to the middle school and really helped to kick it off. Another area of focus is the area of assistive technology, something that we don't often get to share, but definitely many highlights in this area for us this year. We have an amazing district assistive tech provider, Erica Tor. She gets out and about to all of the buildings. Some of the pieces that we're working on: expanded universal access to assistive technology programs, which helps to support those academic skill gaps; increasing integration of assistive technology programming; increase access to standard technology and assistive technology tools; improving access to the digital curriculum content to meet the accessibility requirements. Another aspect of this is for our augmentative and alternative communication, or also known as AAC users. This is primarily nonverbal or students with limited language skills. So Ms. Tur has been working to build the capacity in various formats. One piece of this is providing staff training opportunities throughout the year, developing a consistent framework and knowledge base for the AAC intervention. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin.
Thank you. In thinking about personalization, we consider the work we do to meet the individual needs of our students, as well as developing meaningful connections to support every learner's personal growth. Our department hosts quarterly meetings for our psychologists, social workers, and speech pathologists, as well as our occupational and physical therapists. This time is used to collaborate, share information, plan for meeting the needs of students now and in the future. We continuously look at our students' social, emotional, and mental health across all areas in the elementary and in secondary. Ongoing analysis of current social emotional supports and areas of need to support the whole child are considered as we move forward throughout the ever-changing landscape of mental health. We are working closely within the district and building staff to determine social emotional needs across K through 12. Our students at the elementary and middle school level receive weekly social emotional lessons through the Second Step curriculum. Our other Tier 1 social emotional supports include PBIS, our positive behavior interventions and support, as well as character education. As a district, we continue to evaluate the social emotional supports to determine what is needed to best address student needs district-wide. One other area of focus has been student transitions. Transitions can no doubt be a challenging time for both students and families, and there has been a proactive focus on supporting students in their transitions, pre-K to kindergarten, 5th to 6th, 8th to 9th, and 12th to post-secondary. At all levels, we offer parent transition nights to provide families with an opportunity to gain information and ask questions. Staff have been taking a more active role in preparing students for transitions across all levels. Teachers are meeting and visiting schools to get a better understanding of student needs, collaborating on IEP development, and attending CSE meetings. We also work to support students post-secondarily by collaborating with Access VR, which is an agency that supports students and families to achieve and maintain employment and support independent living. Up next, we'll hear from Rob Kelly talking about community.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm here to focus on the community pathway and how we support and value our community that we live in. Together, we serve our students and families with many supports and services, as you've heard so far. Knowledge of these valuable resources and how to access them is an important part of our work and education. This year, we added Behavioral Health Services North clinics to all of our buildings, BHSN. As you heard from many tonight, the social emotional well-being of our students and families is a priority as increased needs have been prevalent across the district. 160 plus families and students are being seen by BHSN, and they're seeing the benefits of that. We currently have 6.8 clinicians to provide individual and family counseling, medication management. Additionally, this year, we also built in the substance abuse supports and counseling in that area for 13-year-olds and older. Another great resource we expanded this year was ADK Wellness. This service connects students and families to resources in our community, such as transportation, food assistance, health care, legal supports, housing, employment, clothing, and household goods. We did pilot this program at the high school in Greenfield last year with success, which is why we expanded it across the 8 buildings this year. Getting our students active in our community is so important. Our high school students in the special class care program, care meaning career awareness, readiness, and employment, have many opportunities to engage out in the community in a work-based learning experience. During the school day, these students are working at jobs at the high school, going to Walgreens, going to Pitney Farms, the YMCA, and local hotels, just a few examples of our community partnerships. They are also preparing for the coffee cart at the high school every Friday, where they learn customer service skills and preparing food and coffee for staff. So for tonight, they actually prepared something special for you. So at the end of the evening, you're going to get a little cookie, or right now even. So you're welcome to take one. So they prepared that. So please enjoy that on behalf of our CARE students at the high school. In addition to all of this, we have a strong connection with our youth sports programs offered by the city recreation programs. Examples of this include Challenger Baseball in its 9th year, Challenger Soccer program in its 2nd year. These programs bring many of our families together on the ball fields to enjoy the recreational programs offered for our students with special needs. We're also connected with Special Olympics or Young Athletes program, which was also a big success this fall. To conclude, we always strive to do better. For this to happen, we value feedback from our parents. This year, we will be surveying over 900 families, preschool to grade 12, on the special education process. Upon completion of the surveys, we will use this data to support our families better for the future. Now I'm going to turn over to Mary Alice.
Thanks, Rob. So this evening, I'm going to be talking about our pillar of collaboration. Collaborative teamwork is the key to success. With collaboration, goals are set, roles and responsibilities defined, communication and cooperation encouraged, opinions are respected, and our successes are celebrated always together. Throughout the district, there are collaborative connections within the PPS department and with the PPS department. Our PPS department holds weekly meetings as a staff and then monthly meetings with our elementary and secondary administration. We've designated times to meet with each building level during these office hours. This time is utilized to provide necessary updates occurring at each of the building and then problem solve any unique situations that have arisen. Additionally, the special education coordinators attend and participate at building level leadership team meetings and committees. Input is needed on various items such as curriculum, technology, attendance, student support, and increasing student and family engagement, to name a few. Our office and our daily work take place in the respective buildings. My office is located at the high school. Rob's office is here at the middle school. And Beth and Caitlin travel to each of our elementary buildings on a regular basis. One of the many collaborative partnerships in the district is the Special Education Action Team, or another acronym to throw your way, is SEAT, and that is K through 12. And I can speak to the SEAT work at the high school. This is a group of administrations, department chairpersons, and teachers from the middle school and the high school working together to streamline the special education transition that Caitlin spoke about just a little while ago, occurring when middle school students make that transition to high school. The SEAT utilizes the skilled staff in the building as our experts. So in other words, the tasks are created and the projects are driven by need and addressed by our teachers. So the SEAT team meets a minimum of 4 times yearly to look at refinement and renewal and always trying to improve. We regularly analyze our procedures and practices and our activities. And in these discussions, the 2 buildings are always looking to make things better for our students and our families. Many of the conversations at SEAT are how to support, how to grow and move students from one level to the next, with the goal being graduation, college, career, military. And we are so proud of these accomplishments from all of the collaborations. We're honored and we support this work. Everybody get a cookie? Okay. I will pass our presentation back to Stacy Moulton.
All right, I would just like to wrap it up with just a note of appreciation. Honestly, we couldn't do this work without everyone. And when I say everyone, I don't want to forget anyone, but the board, the administration, the building administration, aides, TAs, transportation, food service. I said I wasn't going to name everyone, and then I start, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, who did I forget? But really, parents, it takes a village. And again, I say that now more than ever, just everyone kind of being on the same page and working together to support the changing needs of our students. So I thank you all for this time, and if you have any questions, we're here to answer.
If you could wave your magic wand and get certain positions for certain buildings, what would they be?
Well, that's something that certainly we dream about. We are in the process of going through and doing some analysis across the K-12. So we're really looking at each individual building, the students that they serve there, and their needs, program needs. Again, I think we're seeing that dysregulation. We're seeing students that have, not experienced preschool. They spend a lot of their formative years, at home with mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, and not getting out into the world to learn how to share and say, accept no, and those types of things. We're seeing young students really struggling coming in, which is interesting, having 5 and 6 year olds really struggling. So I think that that's definitely an area. And then, like I said too, that high school group of students, we're seeing more students with anxiety. We're seeing students with that attention deficit. And I keep saying we don't have more students with disabilities. We really don't. And again, we could test students. The tests haven't been renormed. So any test that you're gonna give a student now is normed from pre-pandemic, right? So your students have missed out on a lot of opportunities. So we may find students that, may test at a lower skill deficit. However, it really isn't a disability, it's this time lag. So really what we need to do is, again, focus on the MTSS. What are our supports that we can build in to support our students social, emotionally, and academically as they're continuing to grow. So, I think there's a wide range, and that's a process that we're kind of working through at each level. You want specifics?
I have one more, I'm sorry.
Okay.
With the personalization piece, with the technology, I know that we've invested in some products. Academically speaking, have we been using them and being able to see where the kids are so that we know where they are and where they need to go?
So, I'm not sure what products you're really speaking of. So, as far as PPS, we really haven't put in product. We're trying to work essentially to have access to one of the big pieces that we've worked with ARC, is trying to make ARC accessible for our students who have visual impairments and writing impairments. So trying to work with Dave Alhamadou's team and Lisa's group to work to figure out how does that look and work for students. So those are the pieces that we've really been working on, is accessibility and providing that for students as a whole.
Okay, so you said ARC, right? ARC?
ARC,
Okay.
yeah.
And is iReady also something that we utilize for that?
So iReady is something that the district utilizes. Certainly we do look at that as one measure. When we're looking at students with IEP goals, we're always looking at multiple measures. So for us, yes, we do take into considerations students' iReady scores. It is one moment in time, so we take that and then we look at a student's IEP goals. How are they being progress monitored throughout the time? And the different pieces of their individualized education plan. But certainly that is a measure that we do look at. Generally, when we're looking at a student, we try to look holistically. How are they doing in that class as a whole on the variety of different assignments that they have, so then we can really fine-tune the need for their supports, to give them that just right level of support.
And then after these tests take place, how are parents notified as to where their child is progressing or not?
The iReady.
Well, yeah, besides the report card, like how
So within
should parents
all
expect?
students with IEPs have additional progress monitoring. So they receive a progress monitoring letter of their individualized education goals every 4 times a year. So those go out and it's specific to their student and the individual goals. Again, frequent communication with their case manager, so their special education teacher that really owns their students' IEP, writes a good portion of that, and they are really the leader of that child's education plan. So there's a lot of communication home for students. And again, it depends. Sometimes it may be a student, you may not need a lot of communication. It may be those goals. There may be students that have daily home notes that go and really talk about their work that day and successes or struggles. So it really does run the gamut.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I saw Natalia's hand, then Erica's.
I just wanted to clarify something. Connie, were you asking specifically about when it says assistive technology on the personalization page?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you try that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you talking specifically about the assistive technology on the personalization page?
Yes, or any technology that we utilize for personalization of education across
Okay.
the board.
So that's specifically also just things like communication devices for an individual student or like a device that would allow the sound in a classroom to be amplified.
Yeah, and I understand like the speech to text and all that, yep. But I was looking for like something standardized, like a standardized, something that provides a standardized score and how that can be tracked through time.
I mean, students are assessed triennially, so we do have students that every student is given a psychoeducation, so a cognitive evaluation at the onset of classification, and then every 3 years thereafter, along with any standardized assessment if they receive speech and language services or OT services, PT services, they are given standardized assessments at those periods of time. Generally, they're not given outside of that unless there's a request to see that a student has made a tremendous amount of progress and we really want to look to move towards declassification perhaps for an OT or a PT or a speech. Then sometimes you would come off of that triennial. But as far as special education goes, standardized assessments generally are given in a triennial every 3-year fashion to just address the students' needs, see if we're on pace for where they are. It really just gives a picture of the student's cognitive profile, their strengths and areas of need, and it helps to drive that individualized education plan.
Erica.
Oh, okay, thank you. So do you see a lot of students who have been declassified off of an IEP, having to go back on an IEP with respect to learning gaps from the pandemic? And if so, or if they are declassified, do they typically go on a 504 plan to kind of keep monitoring them, or is that just a case-by-case basis?
So that's definitely a case. Everything that we do is individualized, so for sure. We haven't really seen a lot of students that have come back for after being declassified. That's not terribly common, not to say that it doesn't happen, because it certainly can. But as it relates to the pandemic, I haven't seen a tremendous amount. Again, we're really referring to that MTSS. We're now more than ever, it really is important for us to look at that intervention and how are they responding to that intervention rather than that test. Because like I said, you could test my children, everyone's children, and they would likely come out lower now than if they had had traditional life over the last 3 to 4 years. So certainly we're not looking at that as just one measure. And that really has been for some time. But again, I think now more than ever, we really need to look at the student as a whole and all of those pieces and what interventions have we tried And are they working? If we're making progress, then we're in a good spot. It's definitely that. There's always that analogy of going up the Northway, right? So 85, some people are driving, 65 is the norm, right? So we're going up at 65. Some students may be going at 50. They're going to get there. It's at their own pace. So all of these pieces are very individualized. Yeah.
John Brueggemann.
Thanks for the presentation and for all your work, good work. Feels like every time we get a presentation, part of it relates to what you all do, like, over recent months. And you're just so busy and doing such important work. I just want to remind, you mentioned at some point initiatives related to substance abuse, and you mentioned 13 and older. I want to remind the administration that a while ago we asked for a presentation this year related to vaping and trying to get a thorough sense of what's going on in the district in that. And my guess is this is not the time for that, but it relates to something you said, so I just wanted to just bring it back to our attention for conversation down the road.
Anybody else? Folks, thank you so much for all the important work you do and for presenting to us here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Natalia, are there any modifications to the consent agenda?
There's nothing on my end. Unless there are any other changes, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
John?
Can I ask a question before you make that motion?
Yep.
I would like to pull items G 15 and 16 for a separate vote from the consent agenda, please.
G15 and 16, the SRO contracts?
Yes.
So other than that, Natalia, there are no modifications or additions or? We don't need a second or a vote to pull an item from the consent agenda. So other than that, they?
Okay.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve the consent agenda items E, F, and G as modified.
Do I have a second? John Ellis. Any discussion? This is the consent agenda minus the two items that have been pulled. Go ahead, Dean.
And just for clarification, we're still voting on them. They've just been pulled to do a special
Absolutely.
vote for those two.
Each one will have an individual vote. Connie.
Will there be discussion on those items at a later time, or is now the time when we discuss specifically the SRO contracts?
We will do, we'll follow the same sort of Robert structure. We'll ask for we'll ask for a motion, we'll ask for a second, we'll have discussion, and then we'll have a vote on all of them. All meaning consent agenda and the two pulled items. This is just the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All right, by show of hands, signify your approval of the consent agenda minus G15 and G16. 2, 3. I think that's 8-1, all except Connie Wojtowicz.
For the record, I am abstaining.
Sorry, you're right. I should have asked all opposed. My fault. 8-0 with one abstention. All right, now G15, which one is that? That's county or city? City, okay. G15, addendum to City School Resource Officer Agreement. Do I have can I get a motion to approve that item? This is the city school district. Dean, do I have a second? Amanda, discussion. John Ellis.
Thank you. one of the issues of approving this, again, is the budgetary process. And I know both municipalities have pushed very hard to have extra officers on in the district. My question is that why is the school district paying, so much money for these officers who are full-time county and city employees? And while the town of Wilton has offered to pay for an SRO, I think they said multiple years on that, but Saratoga County has like a $95 million fund balance. The city has a $15 million fund balance. And while the city was just about to give almost $100,000 in raises to 5 employees this past month or two, why are they not paying for these officers? Why is the school paying for these officers? If that's their duty to be in the school, or if that's their wish for them to be in, why aren't they paying for it? Everybody complains about school taxes and lowering school taxes and lowering school taxes, and yet here we are about to set a budget for the 23-24 school year, and we have to come up with $300,000 for, to have these officers here. Well, the municipalities can well afford to be paying for it. Nobody votes on the city school budget or the city council budget or the county budget, but we hear it all the time. I think everybody at this table has heard so many times about people saying, my taxes are too high, my taxes are too high. And now we have to find, $300,000 within the instructional, budget to pay for these officers. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I would vote yes to have them, but, at what cost? What do we cut? What jobs do we cut? I think that needs to be a serious part of the budget. So that's it. Thank you.
Anyone? Anyone else? Angie?
Yeah, thank you. I alluded to this at our last meeting, and I understand the precedent that led Dr. Patton to include the MOUs on tonight's budget, but I don't believe this is the correct path forward this time. Last time, John Ellis and I were the two who were here when NYSER came, and we voted on adding an SRO in December or January. And both he and I did vote yes to add that SRO. At that time, I was in the first year of my tenure as a board trustee, and I wasn't really clearly aware of the budget implications on other choices that are made. So at this time, I feel like going outside the budget process does not allow trustees to fully and critically look at all of our district needs. And we've heard about these needs at every presentation so far this year. I also feel it disrespects the hard work we ask of all the other departments and buildings to identify needs and evaluate current initiatives and programs and student needs for consideration in the coming year's budget. So therefore, I'm respectfully asking my fellow trustees to vote no on the MOUs for tonight, so the SRO positions can be considered along with all other budget requests in the coming months and be voted on in the regular budget cycle as is appropriate to be fiscally and academically responsible.
Are there any other comments? I saw John Brueggemann and Connie Wojtowicz.
I support Angie's view on this. I would add that safety is a very multifaceted issue. NYSER itself had many recommendations, and we do a lot of other things that doesn't involve NYSER. In fact, the NYSER representative mentioned that he wouldn't be weighing in on mental health issues. So I think we have to think about safety holistically. And along with Angie, I'm not commenting on SROs tonight. I'm saying the issue has to be considered alongside other issues, including all of the safety recommendations. And so I support the view that we should consider the SROs in the context of our regular budgetary process. So I will therefore vote no on this motion.
Are there any other? Oh, sorry, Connie. Connie, go ahead.
Thank you. I feel like there's a bit of a theme that has been happening, and that is that the rules and practices at this board table are inconsistent and arbitrary. From the Board of Ed Safety Workshop this summer that was public, I know some of the people here were there. It was publicly said that one of our, in the scenario that we run, hide, fight, and teachers are the ones that are to be the fighters. It was also revealed that the response time to elementary buildings is unknown. It was then called upon that NYSER do the recommendation. Nothing about budgetary, none of this about budget. NYSER, NYSER, NYSER. That is what was said repeatedly, that NYSER recommendation was necessary to move forward with the SRO recommendation. That came back in favor of adding 2 SROs for the elementary level. All of the trustees at this table signed a resolution in strong support of a safe learning environment for students and staff. And in that resolution, it specifically cites our Pathways vision statement under community priorities that explicitly emphasizes the assessment and improvement of our comprehensive district-wide safety and security plans. That the NYSER expert, none of us here are school safety experts, the NYSER school safety experts came back with saying you should add 2 SROs. All of us agreed to add 2 positions for district office at the last meeting, a grants coordinator and a TOSA for athletics. But now, funds are a concern. We're also on the consent agenda for tonight, which is why I abstained. 4 new positions, 4 new temporary positions, 1 increase, 1 consultant contract. So again, the rules appear to be arbitrary. 2 people at this table voted for this in January of 2019. A past trustee who spoke against this budgetary process also voted for it. I just think at this point, people really need to not only examine their bias, but admit it. If you are anti-police, just say so. I'm done with the dance.
I would like to make a couple comments. I resent any implication that anyone who wants to vote in any way on this, whether it's yes or no now or yes or no in 2 or 3 months, is anti-police. I think it smacks of it sort of smacks of an appalling lack of regard for the fact that anyone at this table who has kids in the school, it suggests that they would not want the best in terms of safety provisions for their kids. I mean, it beggars belief that anyone at this table who has a child in the district would not want the best safety plan to be provided for the kids. So I really don't like that implication. I also think it's possible, and I'd like to suggest that it's possible to both agree with NYSER, and I believe there is this belief at this table among many of the board members to both agree with NYSER and to think that NYSER's implementation ought to be discussed at the same time that other suggested by professionals in this community other positions that are suggested by professionals are also discussed at budget time, that it's possible to do both of those things. You know, this is when social workers and counselors and foreign language teachers and other folks are also being asked for in terms of budget requests. So I don't think that it's necessarily exclusive to say that you want to wait to assess the nicer recommendation with the recommendations of others. And finally, I just do want to, I know several other trustees mentioned this, but voting no tonight is not necessarily a no vote overall on elementary SROs. It's inviting the administration to bring the request back during the regular budget cycle. The TOSA position and the grants coordinator position that were brought up as examples don't pull from the same budgetary pool of money that we're discussing during the long budget process. They're funded completely differently, and so it's not an apples to apples comparison there. I saw Natalia, then Dean, then Amanda, sorry, Natalia, then Dean. Actually, I'm going to write this down because just about everybody has their hand up right now. Natalia, Dean, John, Erica, and Connie. And Angie. All right, go ahead. Natalia.
I just have a point of clarification for Connie. Which new instructional positions were created in our agenda tonight?
Give me a moment because this is turned off. But it is in our agenda.
We don't have a public discourse. We're doing our best. It's a tough technological space to work with. If board members could get as close as possible to their mics, I guess, or in the case that there's feedback, maybe back off a little bit, we'll do our best.
So Natalia, under non-instructional appointments, there are, if you look under position status, there are new positions there. Under consultant contract, that is the new one there. And then if you give me a moment, I'll find, there's a stack of them where the TOSA is.
I guess I'm sorry, I'm not understanding why the appointments are the same thing as the creation of new positions.
The status says new, so I don't know how they're not new positions. New and temporary. There's 4 new, 4 temporary.
New in that situation means it's a new hire versus the other ones which are not. So it's not referring to a new position, it's referring to a new hire.
Then why do the others say replacements?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Tim has clarified that is a new position that was previously created, so that's what the PC stands for.
Dean, I believe you're next.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for everybody at the table for providing your opinions and feedback. I'd just like to point out, I don't disagree with what Trustee Ellis said. I certainly think that it warrants revisiting the partnership that we have both with the city of Saratoga and the county. However, I don't believe that should preclude us from voting on the addition of these 2 positions this evening. Oftentimes throughout the budgetary process, as well as outside of it, this board accepts responsibility and votes on different expenses as well as incomes. And I point out incomes because this evening we're voting on bringing in $14,707.79 in an insurance adjustment. So the fact of the matter is that oftentimes throughout the course of conducting business throughout the year, whether it's the business of the school or the business of your personal business, you're going to make decisions that will spend money and decisions that will then save money. At this point in time, I don't believe that there's any reason, given the fact that we've waited for months, we've done everything that everyone has asked us to do, and we have been recommended by a professional organization and then recommended through the superintendent of schools to add these 2 SRO positions to our school district to provide safety and security for our students, our staff, our teachers, and the visitors to our buildings.
John, I don't know which John is. John Brueggemann, you're next.
I spoke before. I think others had a chance. I want to defer to anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak yet.
Erica's next then.
Okay. So, on the record, I'd like to say some of the comments that have been made about police officers have been really appalling. I think that we should appreciate the sacrifices that they make every day. And most police officers are honest, hardworking, and their purpose is to protect us. And so I have to say, some of the comments have been very upsetting. Putting that aside, we don't have any empirical evidence for counselors preventing shootings. We don't know if they work or not, but we believe that counselors help with our children, helping them deal with their crises. We believe that they make a difference. Can we prove that they stop shootings? No, we can't prove that. Same with our SROs. We cannot prove if they do or not. All we know is that they are mentors to our kids. They help our administration. They help our faculty. They help when there's crises. They are an extra set of hands. Their jobs are countless in our district. To say that they are serving one purpose is narrow-minded. There's a lot to cover here, but I just want to say also that in regards to the equity lens that we are talking about and making sure that we are addressing with the DEI policy that was put in place, that conversation did come up at our last meeting, and Dr. Patton did assure us that the concerns of bias and racism, he did not have any. His experience with our SROs and police departments firsthand have emphasized that we do not have those issues in our district, in our community. The effectiveness and the overall progress has been overwhelmingly positive with our SRO program. We have students are building relationships with the SROs. They confide in them, they trust them, and they are just another voice for them, another channel to have to support them. Having SROs also does fit into our pathways. It fits in with our responsibility to equity of safety and security across all our schools, including our elementary schools, our youngest and most vulnerable children. We are okay with having SROs in our high school and middle school, but for some reason, we don't feel that our elementary school students deserve that same protection. So, also, the SROs are part of our community outreach and part of pathways. They are members and mentors outside of our school. They create a positive, effective partnership among the police department, school district, and community at large. So I am speaking to support voting for this and urge my fellow trustees to think about this and support approving these 2 positions. Thank you.
Connie, you're next.
Yes, I just wanted to add a few things. If this is truly about budget, there is a legitimate pathway called S101A that would, provide the training or provide safety at a fraction of the cost. That is something we could discuss. I'm pretty sure that's already been discussed, and that people actually campaigned and ran on, saying SROs should really be the only option for school safety. Last week at Division Street School, there was a man in a mental health crisis that approached the school. It was an officer who helped him. It was an officer who brought him to mental health services. It was not a social worker that approached him. It was not a school psychologist that approached him. It was an officer. And I will just end with an article that came out in Education Week yesterday. It is entitled, "This is not the job we signed up to do. Teachers speak out against school shootings." It's largely about gun control, but I do want to quote this one sentence, or couple sentences here. It is from a teacher who says, "Teachers are expected to act like everything is normal, despite feeling afraid for their own safety. We are so focused on the students because that is our job. Whose job is it to look after us?" Thank you.
I'll go to Angie and then John. She hadn't raised her hand yet, but do you want to, John's, I guess, inviting, since everyone's spoken except you, if you'd like your turn, go ahead.
Sure. From what I see, the goalposts change to fit certain board members' agenda, which is inefficient and disrespectful of everyone at this table's time and energy. I see it and the community sees it. Now you're upset that the recommendation you thought you'd get isn't what we actually received. So you shift the goalpost again. The public should know that the overwhelming feedback we have received from our administration, parents, and community members is in support of more SROs. And the majority of the feedback we have received against them appears to be based in hatred of law enforcement. Let's stop kicking the can down the road and vote.
Okay, John, then Angie.
I'll tell you one thing I will not say is I will not be questioning the motives of my fellow trustees. Because I think you want what's best for our students. I want to say a couple things that have been misunderstood. One is that I strongly supported putting off this conversation until NYSER came. I never said when NYSER speaks, I'm going to do everything they say immediately after they say it. I don't believe that. I'm not outsourcing my judgment. People have portrayed various trustees in ways that just simply aren't accurate. I will also say that I was a candidate for the board the last time a recommendation was made to add an SRO, and I went around saying I support that repeatedly. And I did support it, I do support it. Please, I mean, if we haven't seen anything from our neighbors in recent months, can't you see there's complexity here? We have passion, we have convictions, and I think Erica spoke eloquently just now. We don't have certitudes about a lot of things. We're all doing the best we can. We have some disagreements, so let's not slip into questioning each other's motives. I believe that good process should motivate us to situate this decision next to other things. In the last two meetings, I've heard people be extremely urgent about music, art, Latin, counselors, mental health. And for them, those things are the most important things. The NYSER report has all these expensive things. And if this board, in its wisdom, decides that we're going to add 2 SROs, I firmly believe that decision should be considered alongside other things so we see how much it costs relative to other choices. That doesn't make me anti-police or anything else like that has been insinuated. And I think it's extremely unhelpful to make those kind of comments. I respect my fellow colleagues who have different views than I do on this. Let's talk about the issues and not question each other's motives.
Angie.
This is absolutely 100% not a dance to me. This is me being a responsible public servant. I'm appalled that I would be called anti-police or have a hatred for law enforcement for trying to follow proper procedure. And I don't think you know what I went through last time we had this debate. My family was threatened. They said here's her address. She has a family, thin the herd. And now 2 of my trustees I'm sitting at the table with are calling me anti-police and having a hatred of law enforcement for wanting to follow good procedure and take care of our taxpayer dollars in the proper way. It is unacceptable.
Angie's got the floor. You're, okay. Anyone else?
If we proceed with these, just a quick point of clarification for Mike. I did notice in the 2 different MOUs or MOAs that they have 2 different start dates. The cities is the 30th of January, which would be a Monday, and the counties is the 1st, which is a Wednesday. Any reason behind that, or?
No, we really would work with both the city and the county on a transition plan. Obviously, there would have to be an interview process.
Sure.
So, and with onboarding, so we just really picked February 1 as a potential start date, but we're going to need some flexibility in working with both groups in order to implement.
And would we do the same process that we did when we interviewed for Deputy Martin to come here as
Yep.
well, where we included all the
Stakeholders.
stakeholders
Yep.
everywhere,
Interview
community
groups.
members, students?
Yep, all
Right.
stakeholders would be involved.
Perfect. Thank you.
I saw Amanda, then Kate.
Just wanted to make sure. My comments about folks that seemed to be anti-police were community member feedback. Had nothing to do with anyone at this table, so apologies if that was what you heard. That's not what I was trying to say. I just wanted to know from Mike or Tim, since they're here and they're the ones that are closest to the budget, if I assume we have the budget for this since you're making the recommendation, but I just wanted to clarify that point.
Yep, as discussed in the past, anything that would be added mid-year would come from fund balance, but it would have to be included in the development of next year's budget as a top-line priority since it would have been added during the school year.
Kate.
I know I'm not like a voting member on this decision, but I just wanted to emphasize the importance of student opinion in this because while it is scary for parents knowing that their children are at some sort of risk every day, it's very scary for the students as well. And I've talked to many students about this in particular, and I know that there's varying opinions, but none of them are being asked for in particular. And I know it might not be the board's direct duty to survey those kids, but I think that that's definitely a crucial step in this and something important that might be kind of missing because there are student opinions and it's kind of being overshadowed by almost a political fight, which is kind of hurtful when we are kind of the number one stakeholders in this situation who are being affected on the daily. And we're at school every day, 5 days a week, and it's scary in most situations, and nobody's kind of asking what we think about it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks for reminding us of that, Kate. Any other trustees wish to speak? I've been told by Tim that if we want, we can put these both together, G15 and G16, and vote for them at the same time. That's the city and the county SRO MOUs. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of adopting those two, G15 and G16, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? The motion carries 5-4. With trustees, in support was Connie, Amanda, Dean, John Ellis, and Erica. And all others were opposed, no abstentions. We now, I believe, are at the second public comment period. Let me just double check that. Too many pages here. Yes, second public comment period. Same rules apply as the first. 3 minutes. Please be respectful. Don't mention individuals. And we will begin with anyone still here who signed up on the original list. Fraser Taylor doesn't seem to be here. You sure can.
I just wanted to make sure that I could speak on behalf of my husband. Fraser had to step away for a meeting. He was here tonight to speak in favor of SROs and to provide more evidence as to why he thinks it would be a good thing for the schools. I appreciate all of the comments that went back and forth today. I know it's a very hard topic for the board to grapple with. And as a parent of elementary school kids who cannot be surveyed as to their feelings on a police officer, all I have is a 5 and 9-year-old that I can ask, do you feel safer at school when Officer Moore is there for a lockdown drill? And they tell me yes. And I see pictures of Officer Moore reading to classes and giving high fives to kids. I am so grateful to know that this board is approving these positions so that when my kids are dropped off in the mornings, I know that there is someone there to make sure that their physical being is kept safe. And I'm also, as a person who has family in the education system, my sister teaches in Connecticut. She was next door to Sandy Hook when Sandy Hook happened. That article, this is not what we signed up to do. It is not what she signed up to do, and that was many years ago, but she does it every day. And my heart goes out to her and to every teacher that has to do that. And to give them the support that they need is so important. And I am grateful that I'm here late at night to listen to all of you pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Hannah Hurley.
Hi, Hannah Hurley. I live in Stewart Street. Since the voting has taken place, I would like to revise my statement a little bit. Firstly, my disappointment in the only lick of sense has come from over there, that the students should be represented and asked. There's no sort of, I understand anecdotal stories of your child feels safe or someone else's child doesn't feel safe, but we have no empirical evidence. We're just talking. And I mean, I'm sorry, we're hearing about that there's homeless kids that go to this school. This county does not even, or I'm sorry, Saratoga City does not even have a public shelter for them to be at. We rely on the private industry to take care of these kids, and we're asking for budget to go more to the police. When I see what the police do to the homeless people out there, and you just voted. There are kids here from college. They took their college break to come back and ask for their Latin program to be here. They're just asking for a better education. And the famously unpolitical school board has now labeled myself as anti-police because I don't agree with the budget implications of this decision. So thank you. I guess I am politicized, as are you all now. This is a democratically elected board. To question the motives of the people is just disgusting when I know that these people no matter if I agree with them or not, they give a lot of free time and they work really hard so the students can have a good education. I've watched the board discuss this many times, and there's a lot of discussion about equity, including a lot of inaccurate definitions. The addition of SROs to the elementary school would actually be inequitable because there's not the same risk at an elementary school as there is a middle school or a high school for violence, crime, such as drugs, career mentorship, etc., at the higher grade level. It's been mentioned several times that there's research that there are disparities in discipline across the subgroups where the SROs are not present in schools, and these same issues are actually they're actually larger when the SROs are added. This is what the SROs handle, discipline or not. Most of the discussion about the subgroup so far has focused on BIPOC students, but the disparities also, there's not one to speak here. There's not a BIPOC student that is here speaking. about this issue. But the disparities also exist for other groups like students with disabilities and students of lower socioeconomical status that might be used to the police coming into their apartment building for a little different of an issue than to make sure that they're safe. They might come for an eviction, to make sure that their parents show up to divorce court, for custody court, etc. So not everyone has the same view of the police. I cannot believe that we are still discussing this. When the district admin talks about equity, they list programs such as Snack Pack, Best Buddies, and now the free breakfast and lunch program, which this board worked very hard to pass. These programs do the work of equity because it provides the support for every student. It doesn't matter. Lastly, something I'd like to say is there's not a discussion of SROs at St. Clements or at SRI or at Spa Catholic. It's only happening in this sector when we know that poor kids cannot afford to go to those private schools and they have to come here. We need to have more after-school activities. Kids should not be coming from their winter break to discuss Latin. I mean, wow, okay. This is your pro-police or anti-police, and members of this board have made that extremely clear to me tonight, and I am extremely disappointed by that.
Thank you,
I
Ms.
wish that we
Hurley.
could talk about this as a budget, but
Time's
clearly
up.
we can't.
Thanks. Next up is Rachel Byrne.
Hey, my name is Rachel Byrne. I live at 6 Royal Henley Court in Saratoga Springs. My children have all gone through or are going through Saratoga schools. I've been a huge supporter of the school district up until now. I'm going to talk about the Latin situation. I'm very disappointed that the Latin program has been discontinued. There is a rumor going around that this is purely due to the retirement of the current teacher, but I'm here to tell you that that is just not true. Latin has been under threat for years. I went to a meeting to plead the cause of Latin classes a few years ago when my oldest child was taking it. Suggestions were made by parents and students as to how we could increase student sign-up, but our suggestions were ignored out of hand. There has been no effort to bring Latin as a language option to 8th graders to improve the sign-up as freshmen. But then this has been accompanied by complaints about low numbers of students enrolling in Latin. This year, Magistra Sadlon has been forced to teach 2 different levels of Latin in the same class in the same period. Half the class working independently, the other half receiving teaching, and then swapping halfway through. Just how disruptive is this as a learning environment, and how appalling that a teacher should be put in this position and try to teach at a quality level. It's outrageous and unacceptable. It's been proven that learning Latin benefits students. If you search on Google for this topic, you'll discover almost 600 million hits that discuss the importance of learning Latin. Approximately 2/3 of English words have a Latin root, so studying Latin provides invaluable insights into the English language, which is then used all through high school. It also helps when learning other languages, such as Spanish, French, and Italian, because they also have Latin roots. Latin provides root words for all modern sciences, as well as mathematics. It forms the entire language of law, government, logic, and theology. My point is that Latin is everywhere. Latin might not be a spoken language anymore, but it is still a very important one. This decision to discontinue Latin is short-sighted and ignorant, and does the students of the high school a huge disservice. Many students have learned Latin under Magistra, and she has been a mentor to many. You are now denying future students the option to take this language, and the way you have treated Magistra has been appalling, which I'm sure has been a part of her moving into retirement now. The powers that be in the school and district have been working to destroy the Latin program deliberately and ruthlessly for years. The program should be reinstated immediately, together with all necessary support given to the teacher incoming, to enable this to continue in an appropriate way. For example, not being forced to combine classes for different levels of students. The teachers and administrators that worked for this decision should be aware
Can you
that this
finish
is a
that thought,
disgraceful
please?
decision and should be overturned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Bernadette Ware.
All right. Little did I think that when we came to speak about Latin, we're going to have like the most emotional board meeting ever. So I'm going to just ask you to listen to us because I feel like at this point, Latin is like at the bottom of the pile with this whole SRO event. My name is Bernadette Weir. I'm a parent in the district. I live on 83 White Street. I have a 2020 graduate and a current 11th grade student. You know, the students and other parents have already very eloquently spoken about the value of keeping the Latin program. This is not the first time we're here addressing concerns about enrollment, et cetera. So I wholeheartedly agree with everything that's been said. We've been asked not to repeat, so I want to voice some concerns that is relating to the current students. The current juniors, a bunch of those kids enrolled in accelerated Latin and were told only Latin 1 was offered. So they started off their high school career not only during COVID, but already with a restricted curriculum. Thanks to COVID, they're ending up having an accelerated experience because they spent much of Latin 2 catching up. I have never seen kids so dedicated and work so hard. My daughter went through the program, so I could compare my son's experience to hers. And Magistra really cut out 98% of the things that made Latin fun to catch up from the COVID year. And the kids persevered. The following year, Latin became a co-seated class. One of the reasons that was given was that the school struggled to find a highly effective French teacher. And Magistra is also able to teach French, so we were told that, and I quote, it was for the greatest good, for the greatest number situation. I feel really strongly that co-seating students who are not in the same place academically was an extremely unfair decision. However, the kids, they persevered, they stayed committed. They're coming home, they're doing their homework, they're in a class where kids are in completely different places grammatically, vocabulary, you know, and they're working independently for 40 minutes while the other half is receiving instructions. The course that these juniors should be taking next year is the Latin 4. It's a CHS course. It's an incredible opportunity for these kids. It is also the year that they will earn their seal of biliteracy. Not finishing the 4th year of the language will directly and negatively impact not only their education, but also their college admission. I understand that Magistra Sadlon recently retired and that things are in the air. I'm a teacher. I understand how schools work. However, Mrs. Sau has reached out to parents telling us that that students will receive the information as it develops. I'm asking that you will include parents on those updates.
Can you just finish that thought?
Okay,
Thanks.
really quickly. The kids in Latin are some of the highest achieving kids in the school. Graduates in my daughter's cohorts are now attending colleges that include Cornell, Colgate, Tufts, Middlebury, Williams, and Harvard. I hope that Saratoga really can find a way to give the students the opportunity to finish their course of study, especially with the perseverance that they have showed through the last 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Deidre Chuckrow.
Too short for this. Hi, I'm Deirdre Chuckrow. I'm a resident of Saratoga Springs and the parent of a 2019 and 2022 graduate. My comments at this point are relatively moot, so I'd like to give you some food for thought moving forward. I had hoped that the vote would be different regarding SROs, and it's not because I'm anti-police. And I'm incredibly insulted by the comments made by some of the board members indicating that people who are against having this decision made tonight are anti-police. I have been a prosecutor for decades. I teach forensic interviewing to law enforcement and bias throughout the state of New York. I think that the school board has been short-sighted
in not considering comments that were made by employees of the district this evening. Your PPS group stated in their presentation tonight that there is an increase in needs and there has been negative impact on the social and emotional development starting at the elementary school, at schools that don't have social workers here in Saratoga Springs. So you have made an economic decision by not considering other budgetary needs moving forward. You have ignored Benjamin Franklin, who stated an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In my professional experience, early intervention, therapeutic programs like mental health work, which was dismissed as something that doesn't work by a board member this evening, are incredibly critical and crucial to help prevent the kinds of violence that bring the need for people to feel that SROs should be in the school. I'm not positing an opinion on SROs in school. I have heard nothing but wonderful things about the SROs that currently serve our district. However, are they trained in disability awareness? No. The Saratoga Springs Police Department has not engaged in a disability awareness training. That's how do we talk to kids with special needs or adults with special needs? Do we have people who are following district mandates in curriculum who are coming in to read to our kids so that we know? Are we asking parents of those disadvantaged youth who might be afraid of police for some of the reasons cited, whether or not it's okay for their student to be absent if a uniformed and armed police officer enters their classroom? It's okay that different people from different experiences have different expectations and fears, and sometimes it's a fear of law enforcement. I don't share that fear.
Could you finish
But
up
I
that
really,
thought?
absolutely.
Thanks.
But I really am disappointed that none of those considerations were made, which would have happened had you put this off and allowed thoughtful consideration as part of a larger budget consideration for a district whose own staff is indicating you are in dire need of other kinds of professionals.
Thank you. Next up is Rebecca Lynch.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Lynch. I live on Outlook Ave. I have 2 children at Division Street Elementary School. I had a comment prepared tonight that I thought I would be reading during the first public comment period. I need to throw that comment out now. I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as Deidre was in hers, but I echo everything that she said. I am disappointed in the district tonight. I am disappointed in the majority of the board members here. I am disappointed that I am on the District Equity and Inclusion Committee that worked on the policy and regulation. We worked so hard on that policy and regulation. It was passed unanimously by the board. The board tonight that just voted to disregard the policy and regulation that they voted on and agreed with because they voted on it. It had questions in there. It had a lot of things to consider, such as if decisions are made that impact students, who are they impacting? How are those impacts going to occur? Can we evaluate that? Is there evidence? There is a lot of evidence on SROs. Again, I am not anti-police. However, I do believe that as a school district, we need to be spending our money on educating our students. There are many, many other things that we could be spending our money on that would have more of an impact on student safety than having police officers in our elementary schools. I had hoped that this would be part of the budget process and could be weighed against all of those other aspects. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Madeline Patterson. Sure.
I'm standing in for Madeline Patterson. I also am short. So my twins are in second grade at Caroline Street in 2 separate classes. And about a month ago, they brought home this cool My Safety Hand worksheet that they filled out in class. She wanted me to hold those up so you could see them. So each of her twins made this. Two separate classes created a list of people in their school community and family that help keep them safe. As you read the list, you will see teachers, coaches, nurses, school counselors, parents, aunts and uncles, the custodian, and the school resource officers. Officer Moore, Officer Baker, and Officer Barrett that my children have seen around the school occasionally. This worksheet and activity really stuck with me for 2 reasons. The first is the content is part of the second grade curriculum that we are teaching our students in our district. The idea that SROs are part of their school safety community. The second thing it points out is something that goes back to the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Everyone on this list is a piece of the puzzle. SROs, like social workers, guidance counselors, coaches, and teachers, are all needed to create a safe school community for our children. Each has their role, and just like we wouldn't expect a school counselor to jump in and teach math, I think it's unfair to think that a school social worker could jump in and take on the role of an SRO. Each has their own training and value to the school. The solution is not to just focus on one finger, but the whole hand. So she would like to thank you, and I also would like to thank you for taking the recommendation of the NYSER audit and approve the appointment of 2 elementary SROs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jane Kramer-Varian. You sure can. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Anna, and I'm here for the Bikes for Greenfield program.
Anna, would you mind just coming a little closer to the mic?
Okay. So, I am in 6th grade and I go to school here, but I used to go to school in Greenfield. So, I'm going to tell you about my experience biking. I've been riding a bike since I could walk. I started out on a Strider balance bike when I was about 2. It's helpful to start out when you're so young so you're confident. When you're younger, you have much less fear of messing up or falling than you would when you're older. By starting on a balance bike, I was able to go straight to a pedal bike without training wheels. This is helpful because training wheels give you a false sense of balance and sometimes make it harder to bike because the training wheels get stuck and some kids will get frustrated. Biking is a unique experience you cannot find anywhere else. When you're biking, it's like you're just out there doing your own thing at your own pace, and that can be really nice. Also, the whole biking community is just very mellow and inviting. Pretty much everyone is friendly, and they will help you or give you pointers or tips. Except for when you're doing a race, biking is very non-competitive, and you're not trying to be the best or win all the time. Biking has always been very special to me because I've been doing it ever since I can remember, and it's very stress relieving for me because I can just go and bike, and I don't need to think about anything else. Another thing that I enjoy about biking is that it's a family sport and you can do it anywhere. Biking is empowering and morale boosting. It teaches you perseverance, grit, and resilience. When I'm out on the trail or on the road and trying to learn a new skill, I want to keep trying until I get it. When I'm finally able to do it, I feel proud and confident. I think that this is an amazing opportunity for the Greenfield community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Paul Kelly.
Paul Kelly, 27 Cobble Hill Drive. That's a tough act to follow. I just want to talk about bikes. I love biking myself, too. The board had a tough vote today. I don't think the work is over. It's continuous. It's just begun. The issue's not over. And I want to know people's motives. I'm not questioning them, but I'd like to know them. I'd like to have a robust debate, a conversation on how to make things work. I've got a lot of other ideas and things we can talk about over the course of the next few months. I will say, though, with the board's procedure and the prosecutor would probably know. It's kind of tough to put people into place at the last, it seems like the last minute. Everybody's saying, oh, the NYSER report, we're going to wait for this. And then we hear, well, there's other things that we need to address, or there's budgetary concerns. This has been going on for a long time. I think since April or May, I've been coming here. The board should have had some kind of reserve fund or made some kind of plans, whichever way to go. That's kind of under the water now. But I think a process of having and knowing for people that are involved and taking the time to sit here for hours to speak when we only have 3 minutes and getting a vote and then saying, oh, by the way, there's this other issue that we need to talk about. Let's put it all on the table and have a good talk about it and come up with the best solutions. I think everybody here means well, and I think if we have the process in place, we can have the best debate forward. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. There's no 100% guarantee. This is something that needs to come back all the time to monitor and modify and come back to whatever policy works. Maybe there's more SROs, maybe there's less. There's a lot more to talk about, and I'll be back to talk about it. But I would just ask if there's other things to put out there, let us all be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak? Mr. Crockett.
Mark Crockett again. Thank you, board, all of you, for the service you provide. It's many hours, frustrating sometimes. So I do appreciate that. Even if I do or don't agree with you, I do respect that. I want to thank the board for voting positively on this tonight. I've said this before, I really don't think it's a budget issue. So I agree with what one of the trustees said, that vote on the principle, vote on what was recommended, and go figure out the budget. And I think you can do that. But thank you very much. Praise God.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi there, Marcella Hammer, Brookwood Drive in Saratoga Springs. I am following up on the other redhead who was just here with you, just to kind of clarify her comments. She was speaking to a potential bicycle donation for Greenfield Elementary School. I happen to be the board president of Saratoga Shredders, and she is one of our shredders. It is a group that started as all girls with all girl mentors in Saratoga, and has now expanded not just north to Queensbury, but also south to the Albany area, and into a co-ed program from grades 4 through 12. The idea is that with this donation of Strider bikes, which start off as push bikes and can easily be by gym coaches or volunteers turned into pedal bicycles, this provides a foundation at Greenfield Elementary to teach kids how to ride a bike that can turn them into lifelong athletes, keep them healthy and active. It's a stress reduction process, and it's a lot of fun. It's a way to connect with nature and positivity. She, our young other redhead, is so passionate and sat through a lot of really adult conversations to make her case heard. So I just wanted to make sure you saw her passion and are willing to accept this donation on behalf of community members and Saratoga Shredders. Yes. Hammer, like the tool, hammer.
Thank you.
Like Thor uses one. Thank you, sir.
Are there any other people who would like to speak? Seeing none, that'll close the second public comment period. Thank you for all your comments, beginning and early and late. That brings us to agenda planning. Any board members have any agenda planning items? Seeing none tonight, that will bring us to board member comments. Any board members have board member comments? I see Natalia's hand. Go ahead, Natalia.
Yep, I wanted to say thank you for the donation of the bikes, as well as the donation to to cover school lunch debt at Greenfield Elementary. I think that's so generous, and I'm grateful.
Are there any other board member comments? Amanda, then Dean.
I just wanted to thank all the community members and especially the students. I think most of them are gone now, unfortunately, that who came to speak in support of the Latin program and share all of their experience and their love of the language. As someone who is so grateful that I also had that experience, not nearly to the extent that Saratoga Springs provides or has provided in the past to their students. I share their sentiments, and I hope that we are successful in finding a replacement for that teacher.
Dean.
Both have already been mentioned, Tony. Thank you.
Anyone else? I would just like to thank Kate tonight for reminding us all of the fact that intended, unintended, either way, busy bureaucracies and people can sometimes miss the boat on seeking the opinions of basically the primary constituency of this district. So I wanted to thank you, Kate, for reminding us of that. We need that reminder from time to time. I also want to say that, you know, in light of the vote, I think one of the vote on the SROs, I think one of the issues for me in terms of the timing of the vote dovetails, you know, actually with the much mentioned Latin comments tonight. By considering all requests and needs and professionally advised pieces of our curriculum and our associated you know, support services at the same time, we are able to you know, to weigh the relative benefits to the students of the district kind of in real time. And that's, I think the language folks, you know, brought to bear an important piece about our foreign language academic offering. I mean, whether or not we are able to get a temporary or permanent replacement for Mrs. Sadlon and continue the Latin program for another year or two to complete the cycles of the kids who have already started it, the fact remains it's looking bleak for the Latin program after that period. And I'd like to remind us that the school districts that we often compare ourselves to in this area, the large districts in the suburban council that we sort of, you know, mirror different elements of our offering with. North Colony offers French, German, Russian, Spanish, and Latin. Niskayuna offers French, German, Chinese, Spanish, and Latin. Shen offers French, German, Latin, and Spanish, and Guilderland offers French, German, Spanish, Italian, and ASL. Without Latin, we'll offer only French and English, French and Spanish. I'm not really commenting just on the Latin piece. I guess I'm thinking that our curricular decisions are a very important piece of the budgetary puzzle, and I think we should think about what kind of curricular offering we want to offer the students of this district going forward. Any others? All right. We now, I'm going to ask at this time, we're going to move into executive session, and upon closing it, we will reopen public session right here. I need a motion to enter executive session to discuss issues pertaining to particular peoples in our employ and issues pertaining to negotiations with the SSTA. Can I have a motion to enter executive session? Was that John Brueggemann? And second, Dean. Any discussion? Raise your hand to signify approval of going to executive session. That's unanimous, Tim. We are adjourned until the end of executive session. I'm afraid we'll have to ask everybody to leave the room, and executive session will happen once that